And there we are. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're watching us from today. My name is Jason Flame, and welcome to Master Motivation for today. I'm joined by our special guest today. We have Mr. Fred DePalma. How you doing, sir?
Great. Thank you very much for having me.
Excellent. Yeah, happy to have you. And let me, I took a quick clip of your bio. You got a lot of stuff to talk about, but I just want to read this to get us started. It says Kyoshi DePalma started teaching the martial arts for his instructors in 1981 and went on to open his own school under his instructor's guidance in 1986. He had 4 schools in Connecticut before selling them to the managers and heading out to Arizona in 1991. Open schools there. Fred and his wife Robin oversee 8 locations that are either owned by him or a franchise to his students. Over his many years of being involved, not with just his schools, but the martial arts industry, Kyoshi has spoken for many of the leading martial arts companies such as EFC, MAIA, NAPMA, UP, MAUI, and others. Currently, MA1st is a company where he gets to talk with and personally coach school owners worldwide. If you wish to speak with a martial artist who has had and still has had successful schools and loves to share, then Kyoshi DePalma is the person you need to know. So that's a great intro just to get things
Yeah.
started. Now, where are you originally from? Where'd you actually grow up? Where were you born?
I was born in Connecticut,
Okay.
actually, New Britain, Connecticut. I spent my childhood in Bristol, Connecticut, through the years, and my summers in Newport, Rhode Island.
Very cool. So what
Actually,
was
I should say Newport, Rhode Island, because people hear Newport and they think of all the mansions outside of Newport, Rhode Island, in Middletown, not in the nice houses.
well? So tell me what it was like growing up in the not so nice houses.
Oh no, you know what? You know what you know, and that's that. So in Rhode Island, the reason I stayed there in the summers is my aunt and uncle ran a campground on Second Beach in Middletown outside of Newport. And so I had a cousin the same age as me. There was 5 kids in my family and 5 in theirs. And I think our moms called each other when one was pregnant because all of us are lined up. So I would spend my summers, had terrible childhood in the summers because I spent all day fishing and swimming and, from sunrise to sunset on the beach. I was just a little dark kid running around because I tanned very easy. Yeah. And then being in Bristol, didn't grow up anything special. I was raised with my grandparents and, just like anybody else in their neighborhood, same deal.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like a rough life, hanging out at the beaches and in the water and all that cool stuff.
Yeah, some
What
fun memories. I mean, that's when, before video games and internet and phones and everything else like that. So we found things to do.
right where you actually got to play outside. I think I've talked about this with a couple other guests. Is we grew up as kids playing outside and riding our bikes or riding motorcycles or doing whatever
Yeah,
outside.
right.
But my kids don't know a whole lot about playing outside. They've learned to figure out stuff. Sometimes it's interesting too because I find that when my kids have friends over, they'll be sitting watching TV together, but they're actually on their phones sitting right next to each other. I'm like, you guys can talk to each other instead of text
Yeah,
each other, right?
I say the same thing.
It's crazy.
Yeah,
It's crazy.
yeah.
But
Well, I was lucky enough. My boys did a lot of outside stuff with us growing up, so my wife and I made sure to always be outside with them.
right. What are some other memories you have? Kind of growing up, some things that maybe kind of shaped your life as you grew up.
Um, well, I didn't grow up in too nice of an area. It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't special. And so we lived on a little street between two roads where a lot of bad things happened. And so our little street that kind of cut up the middle, that was a dead end. More kids kind of hung out there because there was some woods there and stuff, and weren't getting in as much trouble.
Hmm.
But I think, if I go back to the old neighborhood, it's kind of like a lot of people are still there. They don't know how to get out. But I think that was my motivation. Everybody sometimes wants to rebel and do the opposite. So basically, everybody in my family smokes. I don't. Everybody in my family drinks way too much, and I don't. And I think if it was the opposite way around, I probably would have done the other.
Right.
So seeing those things growing up, I think was what pushed me to say, hey, you know what? I don't want to be like this or this way. I want to move on to something else.
Hmm. Hmm. I often tell my kids that you can learn a lot by people, by watching people, and you learn what to do and what not to do, right?
Right.
And so you obviously saw some things that you didn't want to do and went that other way. What are some activities that you were involved in as a kid? And obviously we'll get to talking about martial arts, but what are some
Right.
things that you did outside of martial arts?
Well, outside of martial arts, I grew up fishing, so mostly ocean fishing. So now that I live in Arizona, and if I ever do go fishing, when I do, it's in a lake. Oh, we have lakes here. We have a lot of big lakes, but you use these little tiny fishing poles, and it's totally different when you're used to growing up with a hook this big, and now you use little hooks like that. It's
Hmm.
it's a whole different ball game. But
Yep.
so I loved fishing growing up. Riding my bike was one of the biggest things. I'd ride my back when there was just 10 speeds. And I with the banana handlebars. Yeah, I'd ride that everywhere. And then I played football from about junior high through high school.
Very
Well, through
cool.
halfway through high school, I had some knee surgery.
So what position did you play?
I was defense, nose or guard, and then I do some offense centering.
Nice.
But I more or less love defense. I coached football for about 20, 25 years, and I just always coached D. I tell the head, say, hey, you be head coach. You take care of all the parents and all the challenges, and take all the studs. Give me everybody else on defense, and I'll make a team out of them.
Nice.
And I just love defense because we like to hit people.
Yeah, no, that's cool. Well, it's funny. My wife is watching
Thanks,
right now, and
Becky.
she said those are good positions because my son, who is now a junior in high school, he's loved playing football. With COVID, it was kind of weird though because they didn't have a season
Right.
his sophomore year, and then he got injured his junior. But as he was coming up, he's not a big kid, but that was the first position they put him at was at nose, and he just loved smashing into people. I don't know
Yeah.
he didn't grow up being that kind of kid. I thought he would be a little bit softer and a little afraid of that, but he loves defense. I mean,
It,
that's just
it's
his spot.
great.
I keep.
And I think the reason I was online is when I was in eighth or ninth grade, I was 5'11,
Mhm.
and 190 pounds. And everyone thought I was going to become like 6'8" or something. I stopped growing. That was it. I maxed at like eighth grade.
Yeah.
So my pro career, went downhill from there.
Right. Well, football is such an awesome sport in my opinion because the camaraderie and the team building that happens on a football field and during football practice. There's not a lot of sports that practice as hard and as often and as intense. Over the years. I mean, my son also played baseball. He's a high school wrestler now, and there's just something very fun and unique about football. Do you keep up with any of the guys that you played in high school?
No,
No.
I don't think I have any contact with anybody I even knew in high school
Okay.
anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Just
go ahead.
some people that play football. That's kind of the thing is that they build this bond that they talk to for quite a long time. Hi, Robin.
Hi.
It's my
How are
lovely
you?
wife, Robin.
Just thought I'd pop in and say hi. Good to
Yeah.
see
Good to
you.
see you. Yeah. Good to see you as well.
So we're here working at our corporate office, and her office is up in front of mine.
Very cool. Well, let me
Yeah,
shout out real quick.
Yeah.
My mom's watching, so say hi to my mom. Hi,
Oh,
mom.
Hi, Mom.
both
And
of
we
us.
got
Oh
Sorry.
yeah. The
we
camera's
got
kind of opposite.
Jonathan Kritzer is watching on the road. I hope you're listening and not watching on the road. But thanks for watching, buddy. Anyway, we're just talking a little bit about football. Were there any other activities, any other things that you did during high school?
Oh, that's when I started martial arts.
Okay.
Was towards the end of the football. So no, I didn't grow up in a sporting family. So when I signed up for football, it was kind of weird. I think that's what helped me become a good football coach later when I was working with kids. Is it's funny because when how it is. If you have kids or if you've done it yourself, you're in little league or something like that. You have all the volunteer dads as coaches,
Mm-hmm.
and that's just the way it works. And so I've coached football for many years. I started coaching when I was in Connecticut and then continued out here. And you always have the dads on the side yelling, "Contain, contain," and they're going crazy. And the kids are like, I don't know what that means. And so since I didn't grow up in a sporting family where anybody knew anything about sports, it was a whole new world to me. I didn't know the difference from offense or defense. I just knew I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to hit people.
Right.
And so I had to learn. And it was hard. It was actually hard because you had a lot of studs that would join the team that grew up in a sporting family
Right.
and who had parents or brothers that played. So they always had the edge because they knew what was going on. So
Right.
basically, I didn't know when I started playing eighth grade about a first down or how to get one.
I,
And those are silly things I laugh at now. So now when I coach, I make sure to explain the simple things. to the kids.
Yeah.
So they understand the terminology that's going on. And I think
Right.
when being a martial arts instructor, martial arts instructors can make some of the best coaches because we're used to taking a white belt to a black belt and showing them how to do the 4 steps in a front kick.
Right.
Not just suddenly jumping out there and thinking that everybody knows this.
Exactly. Exactly.
So
It's funny. If my wife is still watching, I want to ask her, Jackie, what does it mean to get a first down? How many yards do you need for a first down? Because we had this whole talk yesterday as we were watching the playoffs, and my son has played for all these years, and she's still like, "How do you get a first down? Like, what does that mean?" Anyway,
I
funny.
always tell my wife, Robin, it's the joke in the family. That was on the questionnaire, before we could date, is if she knew football, and there was a few questions, and she answered them right. So it worked out.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Very cool. Well, so you said that it was football. What was it? Getting injured in football that led you to martial arts, or was it just
Well,
kind of around the same time?
I actually had an injury, I guess, growing up, and I didn't realize it. So football activated it. So it looked at, from what I understand, I was younger from going to the doctors. It looked like I cracked my kneecap when I was younger, and it broke in half, and it just floated around in my leg. But then playing football, it was kind of funny. I'd sit there on the ground, go, "Oh, my knee," and I say, "Oh, my knee's out of place," and I start hitting it with my hand. Okay, I got it. I'm good to go. What it was the extra bone in there, I guess, was turning sideways. And so when I was hitting it, I was putting it kind of out of the way. So basically, they cut my knee open and they pulled that out. But so they don't think I broke it in football because I never had any of that pain. What the doctor's saying, that's been broken or cracked for a long time, and that just made it work, made it hurt a little bit. So
Right. So how'd you find martial arts? How'd you get involved in martial?
That was the reason. Surgeries then were a little bit different than nowadays. You go and get admitted in the hospital, to put you under and stay in the hospital for 3-4 days, whatever it is. So when I got out and I had a cast on my leg for about 6 months, when they took the cast off, my right leg was skinny, and I couldn't walk on it because I'd done nothing with it. So the doctor said do exercises like this, and Kung Fu Theater was on TV, and all those guys in Kung Fu Theater were doing things like this. So I said, I'm going to sign up for martial arts to get my leg back into shape so I can play football again. And my grandmother told me no. And I said, why can't I? And she said, your older brother Vinny did judo and he didn't like it. So you won't like doing karate. So no. So I said, okay. And I hopped on my 10 speed and I rode down to karate school and signed myself up. And then she saw that I liked it. So she came and took care of it for me. But that was a start. So I kind of fell in love with it right off my instructor is Greg Silva. So I started with him when I was like 13. And it was in Connecticut. So I know he's big time known for what he did in Florida. This is way before all that. And he had a real killer school there too. But he brought me to a tournament like my first or second week. And I sat in the front of his Corvette and I had his speed detector on my lap as we were going to this tournament. And then if you remember, martial arts is mostly an adult sport, not a kid sport. And so I was kind of on the younger side. And the fighting division was like all rank, 13 to 16. And I took first place. And I looked like the original Karate Kid thing, like real nervous out there, hands up like this. But all I knew how to do was punch people. And that's what I did. The black belts and red belts are jumping and spinning, and I just punched them. And, you just had those little knuckle pads at the time and no headgear. And I won, and people cheered me on, and they gave me a trophy, and there was no police involved or nothing. And I went home. I said, "This is my sport. I love this. This is great." So
now, just to give everybody kind of an idea of a timeline, what years are we talking about when you first got involved?
That'd be maybe 1980, 79, 80.
So this was far before the Karate Kid frenzy and when a lot of people got involved. Maybe a silly question, but what made you choose Greg Silva's school? Was it just the closest school that was near you, or was there something special about it?
I knew nothing about it. This is a real neat story when you come to the business side of martial arts. There was 4 martial arts schools that I contacted that I looked up in the yellow pages. And back then you look up karate, and the yellow pages are these books we used to have. And they'd have anyways. So you look up karate, and there was 4 schools, and I called all 4 schools, and none of them were really close. They were all in another town, and only one school got back with me and sent me a guest pass in the mail. That's pretty crazy. Think about how long ago that was.
Right.
And so that's the school I went to. Now, the reason I'm grateful I went to that school is the other 3 schools never, ever, because I know them all from tournaments in Connecticut afterwards. The other 3 schools never had an offspring, someone from their school go on to run a school. And when that instructor retired, so didn't that school.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm glad I went to the right one, because the other ones have never given me the opportunity that I had to become an instructor and move on.
Right. And talk about what was martial arts like, because, here we are, it's 2022 and we're 40 years later. Martial arts was very different then. What was your training like? What are some of your early memories of getting started? Obviously that tournament was a positive, fun memory, but it was a little tougher back then for sure.
Yeah, it leaned more towards Cobra Kai, but not exactly. But yeah, it was, when we sparred, we hit each other. We didn't use headgear or anything like that, but people learned how to roll the punches. Nobody was being knocked out cold. I remember Mr. Silva had a little award he gave out, the knockout award, in case you did get knocked out that year. But it was like you had bumps and bruises, and it was a little bit different. And like I said, it was mostly adults taking. There were kids, but not as many at the time. I think it was more contact than parents want their kids to have today, just on average. Mm-hmm. And we try to tell everybody in our schools, like, hey, this is a contact sport. So just so you know that, everybody here has to spar.
Right. And
it's a contact sport. Contact's going to happen. So here's your bubble wrap. Come on out. We're going to have contact still.
Right.
But so I think because there wasn't so many distractions back then, we had more time to personally train. So being in school and training, I had time to train. Being an adult and training, I had time to train. When computers first came out and they came to my studio and everybody said, hey, computer is going to make your life so much easier, it's only given me more work. When things were pen and paper, it seemed like there was less to do running my school. Mm-hmm. And then when we had computers, it became more work, more distractions. How many we're right now online, right? Mm-hmm. So how many different avenues do you have to market this to? And how many places do you have to be seen? So before social media marketing, we did the old newspaper marketing and some radio and some TV, and that was easy. You call up your representative, they come down. It cost a lot more. So social media costs a lot less, but it's so much more involved on my side. I don't want to do this. Mm-hmm. So that's why we pay other people to do it, because it's just so much. You have to be on it before people just would call the school or show up.
Right. Well, you brought up a good point about distractions, right? You look at martial arts in the 80s, and there weren't a lot of distractions, meaning you could go to martial arts and you could train. Most kids did one sport, and if they did martial arts, that was probably their one sport. And homework probably wasn't quite as daunting as it is now. I mean, kids now are doing 3-4 sports, travel teams, involved heavily in whatever sport they do, plus school, hours and hours and hours of homework, plus the distraction of social media. You get on your phone for 2 seconds and watch a TikTok video, and before you know it, 15 minutes has gone by because you've watched, 15 videos. And then just all the other things that go around all of that. I noticed that with our students that train now. It's like, well, just practice, right? The word practice, it's like, I just don't know how they can fit it in with all the other things that they have, voice lessons, playing an instrument. It's like every parent wants their kid to do everything, but not really focus on being good at one thing. Does that make sense?
Exactly. I think every parent is living through their children of everything they didn't do when they were little. Well, there was a reason you didn't do it, but now that the kids are doing everything. Our favorite thing is when a parent comes up and says, well, he just wants to stop now. And it's like, so he's the boss?
Right.
I'm sorry. When my boys that both run martial arts schools now, when they started to take classes, I treat them like every other student in the sense of where I said, okay, sure you want to do this? They go, yeah. I said, here's an enrollment agreement. Sign it. You're doing it for a year. No whining, no complaining. At the end of the year, you can decide if you want to stop or do something else. At the end of the year come, here's another one. Sign it. And then people go, man, that's hardcore. It's like, no, why treat them any different? So my wife, who was just here, she'll tell you, after we got married, when she started training, I said, you sure you want to train? She goes, yeah. I said, here's an enrollment agreement. Sign it. And she did. And she gave me a dirty look and everything, but she did. And now she'll go back and say, I know what you're doing. I get it now. You want me to be committed, not just waste everybody's time because I'm your wife coming in here and doing this. I said, exactly.
Well, and we could have a really long discussion on just that commitment level of students and or parents, because you get that a lot. Well, my child wants to do this. Well, that's great. Yes, every child wants to do all these different things, but you
Right.
made a commitment to do this. Well, I didn't think that they would lose interest, or I didn't think that they'd want to do the other thing. It's like, and you got to really work through that and put that out there in the beginning so that people understand.
Right. I think as a parent, when you're running a school and you can kind of go back and use some of your own experiences, it helps out. So I use this one that I shared there with my older son, Jordan. He grew up doing martial arts and playing football. And then one year, I think he was in 7th grade, he wanted to play soccer. And I'm like, you want to do what? He goes, I want to play soccer. I said, you played soccer when you were like 3. That's where all the kids run down the field and run the other way, and nobody knows where the ball is. We just did that for an activity. He goes, well, I want to do soccer as my friends are doing soccer. I said, son, we're not a soccer family. I said, I know nothing about it. I can't help you. I can't coach you along. I don't have a clue. All I remember is in high school, we picked on the soccer guys because they were constantly running laps around the field we were practicing football on. That was it. Nothing against it for everybody who plays soccer out there. I just didn't know anything about it. So he says, I'm going to play soccer. I said, all right. So I signed him up for soccer. Now, being in Arizona and school starting mid-July, it's 190 degrees outside. So soccer practice is at 5:36 a.m. before school. So I'd have to drive him to practice every day. And so I did that for 2 weeks, and the first game came. And the game ended. He goes, I don't want to do soccer anymore. And I go, why? He goes, because I suck at it. He goes, all my friends that are playing, they've been playing the whole time like he does football, and they all know what they're doing. And he goes, I'm just sitting on the bench, and they're all out there playing in the game, and I'm just no good. I said, well, guess what? You made a commitment to the team. Right. You're going to finish this season with soccer. I said, I bought you the special shoes. I got you the uniform. I paid for it. We bought a net for home. I got you the ball, and I've been getting up to drive you to soccer in the morning. And then so at the end of the year, if you don't want to do soccer anymore, you don't have to. But because you made a commitment to the team, I don't care if you sit on the bench, you're going to be the best one sitting on the bench. Mm-hmm. And I would go to most of his games, and he would get thrown in for a couple minutes and pulled back out. It just wasn't his sport, and right. He could run, but he just didn't have the technique down like a lot of the other kids did. And he did. He made it to the end of the season. I said, so you want to do it again next season? He goes, nope. I said, but you followed through on something. So that's where I'm proud of you. You didn't have to be the best, but you did it, and you stopped complaining after we had that one conversation.
Lesson learned. That's great. Let's get back to you and your martial arts. How did you make the transition from, being a student of the martial arts to becoming an assistant instructor or teaching martial arts?
I kind of lived at the school. So since the school is a better place to hang out than my backyard, once I started to go there every day. I'd ride down, and I would do anything that needed to be done at the school. I was sweeping the parking lot. I was painting the fence. I painted there was a basement in the building. I painted that, helped carpet it. I was there to do whatever I could because it was a better place for me to hang out. Back then we got 1 private class a week and 2 group classes. So there wasn't like a class every day, but I was still down there every day. And if anybody showed up to spar, I would be there just to spar with people. And a lot of times the instructors that teach at private, they're going over sparring. So they tell me to come in and help out. Well, there's this one instructor named Steve. He took off one day for lunch and came back and couldn't stand straight. He had somehow pulled his back. And so Mr. Silva said, well, take his classes for the day. And I'm like, all right, put me in, coach. And so I jumped on the floor to take his private classes that day. Well, Steve didn't come back the next day either, or the next day or the next day. And therefore, I was hired because I was the only one that was around. I can't say he came running down to me and said, I need to have you on my team. I think he went, you're the only one that's sitting here. Okay, kid, get out there and do this. So that was the start of it.
So in a sense, you became an instructor by default because someone didn't show up.
Because I was hanging out long enough and I was there to be seen. Yeah.
And how many instructors do we know that that we've hired for that same reason, or we've seen that happen?
I tell people all the time, don't hire because they're there. Don't hire because they're a black belt. Hire because they have a good personality. You can turn them into a black belt eventually.
Sure, sure. So what do you remember about, getting started teaching? What were some of your favorite things about teaching? Why did you want to become an instructor?
Um, well, I enjoyed the martial arts and I enjoyed sparring a lot. And so since we did private classes with my students, we'd bow in, we'd do a little warm up, we'd work on the technique or kata, whatever we were doing, for about 5 minutes, and then the next 25 minutes we'd spar. And that was every class, 4 to 8 o'clock, Monday through Thursday, Monday through Friday. So to me, that was a lot of fun. I enjoyed doing that, and the students that I had, even though I was young, nobody knew my age. That was one thing we kind of kept. Remember, I said I was big to begin with and tall, so nobody knew my age, and I wasn't a black belt or anything, so I didn't wear a belt. So people they come in, you assume, So back then it was the old Century Pro pants that lace up in the front, that little crop top, half top, the little Italian looking vest, that was a little
Yep.
Velcro down the front. Yeah, so I'd wear that. That was my uniform.
Well, once again, it goes to prove too about personality.
Yeah.
If you have the personality and you can play the part, it wouldn't have mattered what belt you were wearing really at the time.
Well,
If people could follow you and learn from you, and you had the personality to bring the best out of them, you fit the position.
it's about teaching what you know, not trying to teach what you don't know. So I'd rather try to teach my students at the time, the 5 things that I know and know well, than try to fake something I really don't know what's going on. And so lucky enough, the people I was teaching were basically my rank or lower than me. So since I did it every day, I knew all their stuff pretty good. And then just got better at it from teaching.
Right. Well, what a great way to stay in shape. If you're fighting every day, rounds upon rounds upon rounds, you're staying pretty fit, and that's always that's a huge benefit to what we do, right?
Yeah.
It's like there's nothing beats being out there and moving all day long.
Right.
I know sometimes at the end of the night after teaching classes and you're sparring with the group or you're grappling or doing whatever, at the end of the night you feel so energized that you can't even get to sleep. That's the martial arts curse.
Flowing. Right. The oxygen and the blood's flowing. So we're night people.
Yep, absolutely. So you started teaching at kind of a younger age, and how long did you teach at that school before it was time for you to open your own school or move on to another school? What was the next step for you?
I stayed teaching for my instructor until I was 17. At 17, I went into the service. So that was, I couldn't keep teaching because I, wasn't there anymore. And then when I got out, I was 18. I did some things in other areas and then came back and joined the reserve unit. My knee went back on me again, so I stopped jumping out of things. And then went into the reserve unit in Connecticut, so I came back home. And my instructor had a branch school that was in Newington, Connecticut, that was owned and was partnered with him and another guy. And he was probably like the 5th instructor at the school that owned it. I don't know what kept happening to people, but I knew him. I didn't know the other people because they were even before my time. So I bought them both out. He wanted out of the business. And so Mr. Silva said we could be partners on the school. Then we both decided that we probably wouldn't be good partners with each other. So I bought them both out and took over the school in Newington, but I was still under the East West Karate name under Mr. Silva. He's still my instructor. I still had business meetings with him every week, and took that school from the size of a sparring ring. Basically, out of bounds was when you hit the wall. I mean, it was a little square room with a door to the bathroom, and moved that into a 6,800 square foot facility, and grew it up to 600 students. Wow. And purchased it with about 40, if I remember. But because they all kind of knew me and I was this kid coming in there and they were real loyal to their instructor, all the advanced belts and everybody kind of dropped out the day I took it over. So had about 20 people to start with.
Wow. You mentioned that you didn't think that you and Mr. Silva would make good partners, and not that it's him or anybody else, but what was the decision? Because many people partner with friends, and
that was nothing negative whatsoever. No, that was just between him and me because we got along brilliantly.
Yeah.
And it was one of those things. He's like, well, I'm going to tell you to spend money doing this, and you're 18, you're going to want to go out and do this. Right. And we said, yeah, you're probably right. So that was it.
The only reason I
was still under his umbrella of schools. I just bought his part out.
Got it. No, and I only ask that question because, sometimes we fall into a position or we have an opportunity and we're with a friend or someone we've known for a long time, and being partners with someone is not
Oh, yeah.
always easy for lots of
Yeah.
different reasons, not negative or anything like that. I was just curious if maybe there's a lesson there for somebody to
Yeah,
learn
no,
that
the
if
biggest thing is we, what I've learned over the years is if you're going to have any type of partnership, and I learned this from some friends that own other businesses, they're like, have it clearly defined jobs.
Mhm,
Don't say, hey, let's be partners, and you don't write out what you're supposed to do.
mhm,
And then after you write out what you're supposed to do, don't bother the person about their job until it's time for you to have your monthly or quarterly meeting.
mhm,
But you decided this is your job, this is my job. You let the other person go with it, and then you get together with your meetings to see how you can support each other. Of course, I didn't know all that back then, but I think it was a decision more on his side than my side that yeah, we probably shouldn't be partners.
mhm.
And I followed his lead, and I also think it was the way he got paid for his other half of the school. I mean, if he partnered with me, I could have gone out of business at any moment because I'd never yet run a business or anything, and then he would have lost out on his part too. So
Right.
yeah, it was still a East-West school under him. I think at one point we had up to 9 schools in Connecticut, what that were under him,
Mhm.
and so we used to do our little meetings together and everything like that. It was great. It was a great learning experience. That was back when EFC had just started.
Okay.
So I
All right.
remember my EFC code, my school code was 004.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I had another school of mine, it was 087. Those are my EFC school codes.
Nice. The things you remember, right?
Yeah.
So you built up this school from literally 20 to 40 students to 600 to 6,800 square foot facility, and,
Yeah.
and you opened several other schools in the Connecticut area. What made you decide to sell those schools and move to Arizona?
Well, the schools are doing pretty decent in Connecticut. At that point, I had changed. Mr. Silva had moved to Florida. And I then, after he moved, I changed the name of my schools because the guys that were in charge of the rest of the schools there, everybody was on their own path.
Hmm.
So since I didn't have his leadership with me anymore, I went ahead and changed so I can do my path.
Hmm.
And I, having a large school, like when the Grandmaster Parker was alive, he'd do all of his New England seminars at my school because he could pack the place with people, which was great for him.
Hmm.
So I was lucky there. But it was 1990. I took almost the whole year off and traveled cross country. And I thought I wanted to possibly look for a place to move to. I didn't want to move to Florida. I said no to Florida 100% because since Mr. Silva moved to Florida, I didn't want to seem like I was following him,
Hmm.
and I didn't realize how big Florida was, but I didn't go to Florida. I got to Georgia and I took a right. And I thought I would love living in California, being a beach kid. But as I drove up and down California, there was just nothing there that excited me.
Hmm.
I didn't. What I mean, I had a good time, but every time I stepped out of the car, well, actually, I had a minivan and a dog. Every time I stepped out, I was like, I just don't feel it. I don't feel the vibe,
Hmm.
and that's what I was going for, was a feeling. And I didn't go any place north where it was cold because I was getting away from that.
Right.
And then I stopped in Arizona twice, and it felt right for me. So actually, I liked Arizona, Houston, Texas, Las Vegas, Nevada, and Charlotte, North Carolina. And so after I went back home, I bought a plane ticket to all 4 of those places and made appointments with commercial realtor and residential realtors so I could see houses and see businesses to open up in. And after I went to them all, I got in a real bad car accident in Charlotte. That was my first stop where I went out the side window of a car. And so I
Oh,
said,
wow.
okay, that's some bad mojo right there. So this is out. Houston, I ended up not liking it when I went back. The realtors didn't show me anything that got me excited. Vegas, I love gambling, and then I decided maybe that'd be too much for me. But I did really like Arizona, so I picked Arizona, went back, sold my house, gave all the managers an opportunity to buy the schools. I financed them for them, and headed out.
And what year this was? You said 1990?
Yeah, so 91 is when I ended up here
Okay.
altogether.
And you moved to where in Arizona?
I moved to Gilbert, Arizona, and my first school was on Gilbert and Guadalupe. The population of the town was about 32,000.
Wow. And what was
And
that like getting started, kind of literally starting all over?
yeah, it was different because I signed my lease while I was in Connecticut. I did see the building. There was only one plaza in town, and there was one opening in the plaza, so I grabbed it. Even signed a lease for an apartment while I was in Connecticut, and that was right by ASU. That was a mistake because there was a lot of traffic during Cardinals used to play at the ASU stadium. So when you had ASU games or Cardinal games, I couldn't get out of my apartment complex. But I was in that apartment until I was able to get a house. I was in there for 6 months. But yeah, so getting it started again, I felt I knew a lot more this time, so it was a lot easier. I knew what I was going for. I knew what I was building out. I knew how I was marketing. By the time we opened, we had, I think it was 204 first class appointments scheduled.
Wow.
And so our whole first month was just doing one-on-one starter classes.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't do one-on-one anymore, but that's how we used to do it. And we did that for a whole month. We didn't have regular classes till after the first month.
Wow. And then that school took off, and from there you decided to branch out. And now, how many schools do you have in Arizona?
Well, the idea when I moved out was just have one small school and not do multiple schools anymore. And I used to do tournaments in Connecticut and not do any more tournaments and just have that one school. But I guess I'm wired a little different. So that school grew. We moved it also within the first year to the same plaza, but more space around the corner of our plaza. In 1997, 97, I opened 5 more schools that year.
Wow.
Then got married and had my son.
Five schools in 1 year.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's crazy.
And how did those opportunities pop up? You obviously had people in line that you were kind of looking for them to.
I had people in line, but not enough.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a lot of headaches that went along with that. So I had some adults in line that were ready to make this as their career. Just got married, and I'm like, all right, let's do it. And I'm signing leases, and they're doing a little sweat equity to become the manager, and they're
Mm-hmm.
working it with me. And 3 of them all left before their doors opened.
Oh, wow.
For 3 totally different reasons. And so I ended up with 3 15-year-olds running 3 brand new schools.
Wow.
I'd actually pick them up from high school and drive them to work. And then at the end of the night, go pick them up and drive them back home.
What was that?
Crazy.
What was that first few months like?
Yeah, you know what?
Did you sleep?
I think it was like a daze. I still don't know what was going on there. The nice thing is we've done well with having what I like to call small schools and big profit. We kept the overhead down. These young guys knew how to sign people up. They weren't experts at it, but you know what? Either people want to take classes or they don't. If you got to pull teeth to sign people up, then you know what? There's something wrong with them or with your program. So people easily came in, they enrolled. They'd send the paper to the billing company, let the billing company take care of it from there. And they were able to teach classes. They were young guys. Now the other 2 schools had adults at them, so those I didn't have to worry about as much. But the young guys, they brought in enough money to cover their overhead, get themselves paid. They're just part-time, so you got to think about it. I didn't have a big payroll, and for me to make a little bit.
Right.
So it worked. I had a main school that I was making my living out of, and these here were, as long as they were covering themselves, I was happy. Mm-hmm. At the moment. I was looking for the long run of it all, not the short term.
Got it. And what got you involved? How did you get involved in, coaching and consulting other business owners and other school owners?
Well, it kind of came as a fluke. So I've been going to martial arts business seminars since they've been around. The first one EFC ever held was in Bethesda, Maryland, at the Country Club, and there was like 10 schools there with Nick Kokinis, the chairman, running it. So I was at all of those from the get-go, and I just was soaking it up because there was nowhere to learn how to do what we do for a living, except going to these things. So I went to them to try to learn. So I was really into it. When I had my schools, now the town of Gilbert, where at 30,000, now has over 400,000 in my city. We now have 4 schools here in this one town. But the Daniel Spalding, who's from Kentucky, I knew him from the tournament circuit with NASCA, and he was one of the top forms competitors. And got to know him, and he moved out here and lived in my house to come work for me and graduate high school for a bit. And then he went and opened his own school. And a few years after he opened his own school, he came to me at one of our tournaments, and he's like, hey, you do a good job with training instructors because I've been at your school. He goes, want to get together and we'll do some instructor training. So your team and my team, and we can have it at your school, and you give a little and I give a little, and get our teams, because both of our instructor teams knew each other. He had one school right in the middle of 4 of my other ones. So everybody knew each other, Right. And so I was like, yeah, let's do it. So we did that. We invited all the other Arizona schools to come to it. And of course, one of the schools showed up. And so we did that for a little bit, and we kept inviting people. And after a few more schools showed up, a few people said, hey, can we stick around and talk shop afterwards? Because, I had the marketing going on and stuff, and most everybody else is part-time schools. So I said, sure. So we get down to the instructor training, the instructors leave, and then the school owners sit down. We just have like roundtable type conversations about what's going on. And so that started in about 97, 98 as well. And from there, I was part of MAUI with Steel Valley's thing. And I'd go down there, 4 times a year and bring some staff and other school owners with us. And it was great. And I'd share down there as well. So I'd already been speaking at other events. And it was like after he had died, a couple schools outside that knew I was running MA1 only in Arizona said, would you be willing to, do it outside of Arizona? And I said, sure. So more or less, martial arts first is just a byproduct of running schools. So it's everything that I'm already sharing with our managers that we're already actively doing. It just became something to share with other people. So it's not what I do for a living. And I try to tell people that too. Even though I have this martial arts first and consulting, I run martial arts schools for a living. So I have a chain of schools. I have a bunch of guys that run everything. They have it all in control. That's where I make my living. The martial arts first is the byproduct. It's the fun part because my managers don't like me being around. They'd rather run the schools without me there. I'm fine with that. I always say if I'm at your school, there's a problem. So
Right.
I don't need to be there. So that's what it is. So it's like why my fees aren't a lot is because I really like helping the schools that are struggling. I have some people that have very successful schools, and I have a lot of people that are having a hard time. And so I don't mind talking to them and give them the tools that they need to hopefully get them started, get them going.
And what do you think is the one thing that most school owners have the biggest challenge with?
Probably staff. Everyone wants to hire their black belts. And I always tell them, if you don't notice them to be on your staff on their way up to black belt, what makes you think you want them now? So like we talked about earlier, I can turn somebody into a black belt that has a great personality, but I can't change the personality of a black belt. So I have some students that are phenomenal martial artists, but that doesn't make them a good coach. There's a lot of people that have a degree in math. That doesn't make them a math teacher. Right. There's even school teachers that have degrees to be teachers. That doesn't mean they're good at it. They just have a degree that say that they can do it. So I think staffing, I also think is prioritizing what they need to be doing. Sometimes we spend so much energy on stuff that just doesn't matter, and that's going to be like that in any business. I think a lot of martial artists, just like me, opened a school, but had never balanced a checkbook before, and doesn't understand. I mean, when I tell people that my rents are $75,000 a month, they freak out. Now, other business owners don't because they do the math of locations and go, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. But someone who's never run a business before, oh my goodness, those numbers are huge. I wish my house mortgage was that much a month. I'd have a house, but unless I was in LA, then I have a shack. But other than that, I'd have a big house someplace.
Tell me about it.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing is training staff, getting staff, and then also people trying to open up multiple schools without having the staff to do it.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a huge mistake a lot of people have made.
Yeah.
So, as I'm listening to your story and from the very beginning, from getting involved in martial arts to becoming an instructor in martial arts to owning a school to moving your schools or moving to a new location and then starting MA1st, it sounds like a lot of things. And correct me if I'm wrong, but that wasn't necessarily the original plan. It was like opportunity after opportunity continued to present itself, and you just seized the opportunity. Am I right?
Yeah, that's probably. It's not like good fortune's fallen on my lap. It's opportunities been there and take advantage of it. It goes to another thing is, I don't think everyone can become hugely financially successful off a martial arts school. However, I believe a martial arts school can give you the revenue you need to make the proper investments to become hugely financially successful. And everybody has a different level of financial success. That's why I'm putting huge in front of it, because everybody has a different way of their means of living. So, like with running martial arts schools, I find the people that live in the neighborhoods that they don't have the $10,000 a month mortgage pay their bills all the time. And the people that live in the neighborhoods where everything costs more, they're into debt up to here. And they're the ones behind on payments for their students. So it's the best way of having money in the bank is live within your means. But
Mhm.
if your martial arts school can bring you in a profit for yourself and you're disciplined to put that away, you could then invest that in other things. So you
Right.
can turn into something. And that's one area that we've tried to do with our schools. I mean, our goal is always have X amount of dollars. The goal is have $1 million in our corporate account. So in case we ever had to close down for some unknown reason for a year, I could still pay all my employees.
Mhm.
And so I've always talked about that. Then this darn pandemic hit.
Mhm.
And I wanted to keep all my full-time guys paid while we were shut down, even though we went right to online classes like everybody else, but we still lost students. Well, I had a good reserve so their salaries could continue to get paid.
Mhm. Well, I'm glad you brought that up. Talk a little bit more about how the pandemic, how everything in the last 2 years has affected your schools or affected your way of thinking, if at all.
Well, it was tough, as everybody knows. So I do this thing every 18 months called Black Belt Exam at Sea. We do a Black Belt exam on a cruise ship. You have to already be a black belt. We say you can't get your first one this way.
Mhm.
So we do it on a cruise ship. So we had one in March of 20, and we came back in the last cruise ship to dock in Long Beach. And when I came home, I had a 4-hour window to realize I was being shut down. So, I went out on a cruise and the world seemed to be doing okay. And there was this COVID thing going around, but whatever. And I came back to business closed and no toilet paper. So it was, what happens when you're away, So we went right to online classes in 4 hours with all of our schools. We did it the way that I felt to be easiest for us because I didn't have time to go investigate everything and buy cameras and so on. So we more or less, and we still have it, we made Facebook groups for beginner, intermediate, advanced, black belt, and little dragons. And we just told all of our students, go to these groups. They're private groups. You got to fill in a little questionnaire, which location, what's your child. We want to make sure they're our students. And then we'd accept them in. And people say, well, I don't have Facebook. I said, that's fine. Just make a fake account. Don't get any friends on it. This is how we're doing it. So people got around it and they did. And so we still have them up there. So within that 4 hours, my team had a whole schedule for we were offering more classes online than we were in person. The nice thing about Facebook that we found, I know, and everyone will argue with me on this, the Zoom classes, you see everybody there and you communicate, and that's wonderful. There's nothing wrong with that, but we weren't set up to do that. We weren't ready for it. And I didn't have equipment at every school, and I wasn't going to go buy equipment for every school to do this. So the Facebook worked because the guys just did it with their phones. They just set their phones up and it was perfect. And even though they couldn't communicate with their students, I've also heard about instructors that are looking at their students and all of a sudden the kid takes off. I'm like, where are you going? I'm playing with the dog. Like, get back on the floor. So, but the Facebook classes stayed, so you can do it at your time. Right. And then we sent out a class log on all those groups and people could print out the log and they were sending them in for their online testing and so on, that they were actually doing classes. They did X amount of classes in order to qualify. So that worked for us because it was simple. It was easy. We dropped about 20% of our students during that time. But we also dropped our part-time staff. I mean, they're young people living at home. So, I wasn't over worried about them. Most of them came back afterwards when we reopened. Now in Arizona, we were closed for 9 weeks. And then we reopened in the gray area because we're not really a health club and we're more of a specialty school. So we decided we'll lean towards that side until somebody says we can't. And it worked. If we leaned towards the health club side, we weren't allowed to open yet. So we did that, and we did it with first we did it private class only. So I went back to my roots, and so no one could complain, and everybody was teaching all these private classes to their students and still had the online. Then we went back to smaller classes, and being in Arizona, things got laxed a lot faster than other states. So we went back to just mass only for a long time in class with full-size classes.
And how are things going for you now? Are things back to normal?
Sorry, I'm going to show you my office a little messy. So there's a graph on that wall right there. You see all those lines going up?
Yep.
The start of those lines was right when COVID ended. And then there's, there goes my camera. There's my ceiling. Then there's a number on, I can't see it from here. There's a number on there that says pre-COVID. Where were we before COVID started?
Right.
And every school, when we reopened, jumped past their pre-COVID numbers.
Nice.
It's like people were sick being stuck at home.
Right.
And all the other sports hadn't opened yet, and we were. And we just started to get flooded.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. That's good to hear. And being in Arizona, I know being in California, I know how different our experience was as far as the closures and this and that. But we have noticed the same thing. Our numbers now far exceed our pre-COVID numbers. We just had a huge, and we're still experiencing it right now. That it's just people want to get busy and people want to get
Yeah.
active, and I also feel like the people that are training now, I forget who said it or how they said it, but all the people that were kind of like floundering in their training, people that kind of, they're gone. And all the people that really want to be active and really want to be involved and really sharing
Yes.
our values and not just what we teach, but how we feel about everything going on. We have a stronger community. Our culture has been reinforced, you know, tenfold by who is training at our school now, and we've seen a huge change and kind of a transformation in what was really a difficult time for a lot of people. I
Oh
have
yeah.
heard lots of different numbers, different stats that were thrown out about how many schools closed or how much schools lost. Luckily for us, we've been very fortunate to come
Yeah.
out of
And
it much
that's
stronger.
the thing with running a business too, is you need to put something in the reserves, because I never thought I was putting money in the reserves because of a pandemic.
Right.
I thought maybe a building would catch on fire, which happened once, but it's like I never thought I'd be shut down because of something like this for this length of time. But I've always been trying to be prepared in case.
Right. Right.
And I would never guess this. And so having the reserves and having my full-time staff is paid quite well. Them having some reserves too, knowing that hey, we're not going to lose our job, but if we do, we can still push it through. So I'm glad it didn't go much longer.
Right.
Yeah,
it's definitely. I think we really turned the corner, and things are.
Yeah.
We keep
Like you
saying
said,
that new normal, but
yeah, the students that weren't really into it, it gave them a reason to quit, an opportunity
right.
to stop. And the
Right.
students that stuck with it, like our first belt exam back at one point, we thanked everybody because they're ones that stuck with us through all that.
Mm-hmm.
And they're into it. They love it. They say, hey, you know what? We want to train no matter what, and they're still here.
Yeah, I think we figured out who are our raving fans, who are the most supportive families that have been here, from the beginning, and even the people that signed up. I mean, even the people that enrolled at the beginning of it or in the middle of it. You kind of see how attached they are. They feel like this is their thing. So no, it's been great. So what's next? What's next for you and for your schools for MA1st?
Well, I'll go into that, but I'll tell you this: I want all the schools that are listening. We're into tracking things. Look at your student body belt level and tell me where the pandemic was at your school. That's that gap of rank. You have that little bit where your numbers fell down a little, you didn't get all the new students signed up, and we see it. We see, like, all of a sudden we have a belt exam. It's like, how come nobody's going for green belt? Oh, we didn't sign up any students then. That was our gap that month of we didn't know what was going on and no new enrollments. So it's kind of funny to watch it move up and away until it's gone.
Right.
Until it's gone. Well, MA1 keeps going. The big thing about MA1 is, I do an event every year called the main event. So that's going to be coming up the second weekend of May. It's in Arizona. So every 3 or 4 years I move around. You've been out to speak once. I think you went to our San Diego one.
Yep. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So we did in San Diego for a few years. It's been in Phoenix. This will be the 3rd year. And then next year I'll probably move it someplace else. I like to move it around to make it convenient for people to get to. So we'll have that. MA1, I do a lot of seminars in other countries, but because of the pandemic, all that's been shut down. So I'm hoping now we have Australia, which is still closed, but we have a date scheduled there. And Austria has been put off for 2 years. We're back there in Germany again. I just enjoy it. I enjoy the traveling and getting to meet with other school owners. I think the biggest thing is not that I know everything, but I've seen all the problems. And I've talked to enough school owners that maybe I can share or relate things with people of where they need to be moving forward to. And I love to give recommendations to some of the martial arts businesses out there that know what they're doing. There's a lot of things that I don't do. I know what I know, and I don't know what I don't know. But what I know, I don't know. I hire someone else who knows.
Right. Absolutely. Yes, sir.
I'd rather push people to hire other people to do things that I'd either rather not do or I'm not knowledgeable on. I don't want to have to learn how to design a webpage. I have other things to do. So but somebody else wants to, so go for it. But you got to decide what's most important for growing your business. So we'll keep going with MA1 and keep doing the coaching and working with the schools. And it's a very laid back organization. People go online and they become a member online to either just a paper member or the one-on-one coaching that I do kind of just like this. And whenever they figure they got enough, they go right back online. They click cancel. It's just a month-to-month thing. I tell everybody, hey, we're still gonna be friends. If you need a little bit of help with something for just a couple months, I'm here. And then you cancel, I'm still gonna invite you to stuff. It's no big deal.
Right.
With our school, this building that my office is in right now is a 6,000 square foot plaza. My younger son's karate school's here. He's got 3,600 square feet. My office is 1,200. Then we have another 1,200 through that wall. That's a little New Mexican grill. So we're closing on this building right now. So I'm going to own this plaza. So we decided to buy it from the landlord, which is great because the mortgage costs less, than my rent. So I'll save there. However, getting anybody who's done commercial loans, putting 25% down, $2 million building is taking a lot out of pocket. And right before we started this, we bought a building in Queen Creek, close to where I live. It's an older like farmhouse type in a downtown district that's being converted over to businesses. So it was a great investment buy, but we call it the crack house because I think there was a lot of other stuff going on there before we took it over. So that's been being rebuilt since last April. And when I was there last week, the floors are just now getting laid in. So we're going to move my offices from here to there. And my wife and I just got 3 more kids at our home. We're kind of fostering. And so it brings me a mile from the house and her too. So we're a little bit closer to what we're doing at home. And then I can rent out this 1,200 square feet to somebody. And then I've a fun thing. We talked about football. I don't share this, but I guess I'm sharing it now. I own a professional indoor football team. So that is something that just started. We're still finalizing our contracts on it right now. We've got coaches hired and players, and we have open tryouts at the beginning of February. They'll be held in California. The team's it's called Northern Arizona Wranglers. So indoor football is the same as people call arena football. Arena football went belly up a few years back. Indoor football has been around almost as long. And so we're part of that league. So it's a professional team.
Very cool.
So this is like where Kurt Warner comes from.
Nice. Well, let me ask you this, since we're on the topic of football and just kind of outside of that, what are you talking
about football?
Right. Well, what are your thoughts on the XFL coming back with Dwayne Johnson, buying that and starting that up? You have any interest in that or any thoughts on that?
Well, I wish I knew more about it beforehand, because I would possibly have interest in seeing if it's investment worthy. And because since I'm investing now heavily into indoor football, obviously I'm a football fan, but my money needs a return on investment.
Sure.
And so our season begins in March. And I think now this XFL might be in competition a little bit with our season. We have 16 teams throughout the country, to where we have a Midwest and a Western conference. And I saw that coming up and I didn't know about this. And so me now thinking about, okay, my investments here, are we going to be in competition with that? And they have more money.
Right.
So it's going to be a fun little thing. Now, Arizona Rattlers Arizona has 3 teams, and Arizona Rattlers are the #1 team in the country. Then there's now a new San Jose team. So in Cal, there's 2 teams in California, San Diego and San Jose. But anyways, I just like football. I don't know if I'm going to follow the XFL because it's going to be going on the same time that I'm doing my thing. And you only have so much time. So
yeah, for sure. Who's your pick for the Super Bowl? Who's going to play? Who's going to win?
Well, geez, my Cardinals are doing wonderful until the end of the year. But so now I don't care anymore. Now, sorry, everybody in Florida, but I was happy to see Tampa Bay lose. Nothing against Tom Brady or Gronk. They're 2 of my favorites. I'm from New England, but I just never been a fan of Tampa Bay's team. I don't know why. Just something about it rubs me wrong. I hate most of things that have to do with Ohio because my wife's from there. It's an inside joke. She's probably listening in the other room. Anyway, so I like the kid that's the quarterback for Cincinnati. So I'd like to see him go far, and I wouldn't mind the Rams. So I'd like to see Cincinnati and the Rams in it at the end.
And who wins?
I'd rather Cincinnati since the Rams beat us.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, there you go. We'll see what happens. Yesterday was a heck of a
Oh
day
my
for games.
goodness.
It was
I
amazing.
know. I
So
know.
very cool.
It was fun.
But hey, just to wrap this up, if you were to give not just school owners, but any business owners watching, or just anybody in general that's watching right now, what is your advice to them on just reaching that level of success, or how would you define success to someone that's watching this?
Well, it's a hard question because everybody has different levels of success and what they find it to be. For me, success is family. So I've always believed in family first. And so sometimes if I'm working long or hard, it's so I can provide for my family. But with my boys that are both adults, our older son's having our first grandbaby in June, we traveled a lot with our kids. We spent a lot of time with them, a lot of camping, a lot of off-roading. So having a business that allowed me, or making sure it allowed me to be able to have family time, was success to me. I'd give anything for more time with my family. I don't have to have money as long as I have more time with my family. However, having the capital allows you to do some fun things with your family.
For sure.
So that's my level of success. The other thing is always making sure you're putting something away, no matter how little it is. I challenge everybody that runs a martial arts school that if they have a student that comes in and pays cash for a program for 3 months, 6 months, a year, put it in a savings account. Don't put it in the bank because you haven't earned that money yet. So what we've always done is taken our paid in fulls, and we don't market paid in fulls. We don't give a paid in full discount. So, but some people like me, I like to pay in full for things because I just want it out of the way. But put it into the savings account, and every month we automatically take 10% of that back out into the business. And people go, "Why 10%?" I say, "Because it works." That's all. Just figure it's 10%, it works. So 10% comes back to pay our bills. There's no way to do. I'm not going to go into my savings account and say, "Okay, so this guy was paying this much, and then okay, I got to take out this," and we just say 10%. So if I only have $100 in there, I have 10% to take out. So it's always going to have something to put towards a business, but watch that grow and then try to make the proper investments from there. So I've made some good investment decisions over the years. I'm not an investor guru to give anybody advice on it whatsoever. I just did what was right for me. And I prefer to hire somebody else to do it. But I think that's important. And, have a reserve, have something to back you up, especially if you're just getting started. It's like when you open your doors, you don't want to have to live in your studio in a sleeping bag or cot in the back room. And everybody's willing to. But if you can save up a little bit before you get going, it makes going a little bit easier. I think, one of the top reasons for divorces is stress over finances. And stress over a business finance is going to be the same thing. So try to have that little bit of reserve so you don't stress over it as much.
Well, all great business advice and talking about investments and savings. But what you started with, I thought was really important. And I pulled this up on my phone because I've saved this. It looks like since 2014, but it's a quote by Walt Disney that says a man should never neglect his family for business. And I appreciate the fact that you say family first, and having a successful business in whatever regard that is being able to spend time with your family. I 100% agree with that. And I watch you on social media. You love to go riding. You love to go you're out there doing stuff with your family, and I can tell that family time is super important. And congratulations on having a grandbaby coming up. That's going to be awesome.
Thanks, Sil.
I hope that I have at least 10 more years for that, but we'll see.
Well, my wife and I were empty nesters until May. Now we have 2 7-year-olds and a 1-year-old in our house. So
starting over.
Oh boy, I'm not sure about this still, but
well, hey, thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate you just kind of being
pleasure.
open.
I'm glad they had me on here, and anything I can ever do to help, just let me know.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. Well, everybody keep watching. We'll be back on next week. We got Julio Anta coming up and so many more guests on the show each and every Wednesday. And something new that I've started, and I'd love to have you back for something like this is I'll be doing roundtable discussions with like-minded, grouped people. I had a group from our Krav Maga Federation this month, and I'll be talking to some professional wrestlers in February. Nice. But we may have a consultants roundtable or just a school owner roundtable, which I think would be super fun as well. So keep tuning in, guys, and thanks for watching today. Thank you, Mr. DePalma.
All right. Hey, my pleasure. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Take care. We'll talk to you soon, and see you next week, guys. Take care.